Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Chrism and I'd like to welcome you to this conversation about your Kundalini Awakening experience. Today I'm very happy to announce that we are broadcasting from Mendota, Minnesota, from the beautiful octagonal home of Rosemary Goliath, the Northern Ambassador for Kundalini Awakening Systems. And I would like to welcome Rosemary, Santara, and Her Holiness Eileen Laurel, the Southern Ambassador of Kundalini Awakening Systems. I'd like to welcome, it looks like we have MJ Henderson, we have Julia, we have Celestial Rubies. Hello, my dear. And I would like to welcome everyone to this program. I understand that Blog Talk Radio made this announcement as I was waiting to go on air, and it said that Blog Talk Radio is having some sort of a problem. Julia, looks like nobody's hearing anything here. Let's see. No sound, huh? Oh, no.
Okay, I'm coming online. Just would people in the chat room say if they can hear my voice? Hello, everybody. This is Santara. Please let Chrism know in the chat room if you can hear my voice. Eileen is online, Chrism, with a question. Do you want to take it? Maybe she can't hear us either.
We need to make sure that the sound is working first.
Okay.
Anyway, I could.
Anybody?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly. Anybody responding to me there in the chat room?
I can hear Chrism too. So Julia can hear Chrism. Celestial Rubies, I can hear now after refreshing. That's so weird. Hello, MJ Anderson. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your patience, my word. You know, I was just like talking to a wall, basically. Okay.
Oh, dear. The fact that they're admitting they've got problems is probably not a good thing, Chris.
Well, you know, I mean, we can I mean, at least they announced it before we went on air. So everybody, okay. Julia, Julie, MJ Henderson, welcome. Eileen, Laurel, Rose, and of course, Santara, welcome. We are broadcasting. Oh, and Andrew. Hello, Andrew Parmalee. Nice to see you. And we are broadcasting from the beautiful state of Minnesota in the cold northern regions of the United States, North America, planet Earth, Solar System, Milky Way galaxy. So as we are here in Minnesota, we have snow outside. It's very, very Christmassy here. And I'm sure Andrew and Julia are just laughing because they like live here and they're like going, oh yeah, so Christmassy. But for a person like me who's from California, the West Coast, it is quite nice. You know, people were warning me about how cold it was, and I thought, oh, wow, what a perfect opportunity to test, once again, you know, the thousandth time, you know, just to see how the Kundalini comes up to warm a person, you know, in the extreme cold. And my gosh, did it not do that? It did it so well. I stepped out of the airport in 1 degree weather, 101 degree weather, and it felt so amazingly good. Oh my gosh, got out of the hot, stuffy airplane and walked through the hot, stuffy airport, and, you know, everybody else was holding back from the door. They didn't want to go out because I guess it's kind of cold. And boy, I went out and I took off my jacket. I took off my hat. It's like, oh, it feels so good here. So really, really, really for those of you that have the sacred heat enveloping you inside and out, Minnesota is a really good place to go just to get a little cold into your system. Or, of course, you can do some lunar breathing, which I hardly ever do. Everybody's hearing this okay? Oh, look at this. MJ Henderson says, it's cold enough here in Massachusetts. Yes, I imagine so. I imagine that Massachusetts is north enough. Hi, I see you, Andrew. Hi. It's really nice to be here at Rosemary's house, our Mother Superior of the Kundalini Order. You like that, Rosemary? But yeah, it's been very, very, very much a blessing. I've been here, I think, for 2 days. 2 days now, I think. Yeah, I've been here for 2 days, and I've had the pleasure of seeing Andrew Parmalee in person and Julia in person and many, many, many other people that came to the Minnesota seminar in September. What is happening here is very, very, very good, very unique. What's happening is after that seminar last September, Rosemary got together with a lot of the attendees and decided to create a kind of like a club or a group, or for people that attended the KAS1 seminar. They come together. They come together in person once or twice a month. I forget what it is. And they also come together online using Skype, using different formats that give you the ability to have, a meeting with more than one person. So it's been very, very, very interesting to be here and to see the people that are working the Kundalini, letting the Kundalini work them, and really, really beginning to live the life of the Kundalini awakened person, which is basically, let's just come right out and say it, is learning how to walk and talk the divine expression of a saint. And SAINT. Look that up, and if you're listening to this conversation, if you're one of the couple of the folks here listening right now, they know what's going on. They're feeling the energy course through them. They're feeling the sacred and holy convergence beginning within them, and they're reaching out into the populations to help bring other people into a divine appreciation for the inner divinity, the Kundalini Awakening. Before I go any further, however, I would like to welcome the questionable, or the Queen of Questionable Comforts, the Celtic Queen of Questionable Comforts, Her Holiness, Her Santaraness, Amelia Santara. Hello, Amelia.
Hello, Chrism. Hello, everybody. Good to be here. I'm actually, for once, in a very warm place. I'm broadcasting, or my studio is in the car here in the beautiful island of Fuerteventura, which is one of the Canary Islands just off the coast of Africa, a Spanish island. So I'm in a different place too. And it's very good to be here with you all this Wednesday evening. It's the same time as in Ireland. It's just gone 11 p.m. So I've had no change. I think you have had a change there, a couple of hours, Chrism, where you are.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's good to be here, and I'll begin as I always do by just giving everybody the address they can go to if they would like to make a donation to Kundalini Awakening Systems and the work that Chrism does. The donation place is www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com, and in the upper right-hand corner you will see the donate button, and all donations are greatly appreciated. So thank you, Chrism. I'm ready to go. I have some questions here that I've gathered. Some have been sent to my inbox and one or two from the group, so whenever you want me to ask those, I have them ready. And hi, Rosemary.
Thank you, Amelia. Yes, she heard that.
Okay.
She heard. Now, I'd like to direct people to some other areas where you can get very similar information. One would be Kundalini Awakening Systems, the number one.com. Another is Kundalini Awakening Seminars.com. Another is Kundalini Awakening Systems.
Okay, I can't hear Chrism anymore. Is that because I'm gone offline?
Really? Uh-oh. Anybody else in the chat room, can you hear me? Feel free to type. Oh, some folks are typing there. Okay. Yes.
Hello?
Thank you. You're back, hon. Hello. Okay, and I would also like to let people know that you can go to the YouTube channel.
Eileen, can you still hear Chrism?
Yeah, we're just going to go and put her in the blue until she can start hearing me. There we go. Okay, and then you can go to chrism.kundalini in the YouTube network, and there's about 304 videos for a person to watch. Information, you can see the person who's speaking. You can kind of feel, the integrity of the information as it is being spoken. You can see the body language. You can see the facial expressions. You can see these things, and these other capacities are also indicative of the honesty and the integrity of a person who is saying any kind of a word. I mean, if you can see their facial expressions and their body language, then you're doing pretty well with being able to get the spoken information and the unspoken, nonverbal communication. So go ahead, and if you feel pulled to, go ahead and watch those videos. We're also on the Facebook network at Kundalini Awakening ! And Kundalini Awakening Systems 2 and Kundalini Awakening Systems 3. We're also on the Yahoo network at Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at Yahoo Groups. We're in the Google Plus network at Kundalini Awakening ! And we also have the Yahoo Kundalini Healing and the Facebook Kundalini Healing. So if you are in need of healing, you can go to either of those two areas, and Kundalini Awakened people will work on you. Okay, providing everybody can hear, because once again, Blog Talk came on before we came on air and said we're having problems, blah, blah, blah. And since we're having problems, if you have anything that you'd like to report to us, then go ahead and give us an email, which doesn't really help anybody that's supposed to be broadcasting. But anyway, so as I am here in Minnesota, in the beautiful frozen or beginning to be frozen northland of the United States, it's just a very, very interesting time to be here, to watch people begin to dive into their home life. When things get really, really cold, well, people like to go into the home and into the shelter and into wherever they can stay warm, and that's typically with other people for the most part. So it's really nice to be here. It's really nice to experience that feeling as it pervades over the Twin Cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis. And I was even allowed to go into some of the suburb areas last night, one called Prairie Eden, which I think has a fairly biblical connotation, Prairie Eden, E-D-E-N. And we had a nice talk there with about, 13 or 12 people. So it's very, very nice to be here. If you have any questions, I would like you to call 347-934-0026. I'm going to see if I can get Santara back on. Let's see if she's here. You there, Santara?
Yes, Chrism, I am here.
Nice to see you. And you said you're broadcasting from a warm place. That sounded a little bit, shall we say, like you have gone to the warm place that everybody goes to when they haven't been so good.
Really? Well, I'm enjoying it.
Sure. Lots of friends there, I'm sure.
It's very nice. It's very nice here. It's interesting because it's It's a very, very barren island. It's full of rocks and full of lava stones, and there's not much vegetation here. So it's quite different. I have an affinity with islands, and this one is a bit strange. And the other day, though, I went to a beautiful sand dune area that went right down to the beach, and there were very, very ancient lava formations down on the beach, and we sat there for quite a while, John and myself, and we had a picnic there, but before that we meditated, and that was really wonderful to connect in with that aspect of the island and just feel, my Kundalini resonated with the ancient, those rocks. That was really, really lovely. And there's lots to be seen here. It's just not as obviously beautiful as other places that I've been to. So, yeah, but it's good.
Well, it sounds really, really, really nice, and you did take some pictures. Really, it's nice that you're able to be in a warm place in the winter time. So how nice is that? And Rosemary's house here is an octagon house, meaning it has 8 sides to it. It is a 2-story house with windows on all 8 sides of the house. It's a very beautiful place made out of knotty pine, which has a resonance with the pineal gland in people that have a Kundalini understanding, and it's very, very nice. And I know that Rosemary would be happy to welcome any of the Kundalini Awakening people that might want to venture to the north, into the Twin Cities, and you might want to just drop her an email and let her know that you'd like to visit. And she's nodding her head. She'd be very happy to welcome all of us. Well, let's go ahead and get started with this conversation. And the first thing I'd like to do is I would like to hear Eileen Loro's question. Hello.
Hi, Chrism. I didn't have a question. I had a problem with my phone. You are coming in nice and clear.
Well, thank you, my dear. Thank you. How are things in sunny Florida?
Well, I'm in Indiana, so...
that's right.
Yeah, it's cold, no snow.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting being here.
That's a place where you grew up, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So lots of memory lane material. Well, okay, good. I'll go ahead and put you in to the Shakti Blue.
Thank you.
Shiva Blue here. And we'll bring Miss Santara back on. Miss Santara, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am here.
You said you had some questions.
I have. The first question I have is, if Kundalini is a separate consciousness to our own, then what happens to the Kundalini when a person dies?
If the Kundalini consciousness is a separate consciousness of our own, then what happens when the person dies? Does the Kundalini just...
What happens to the Kundalini? Yeah, I think that's what is meant. If there are two that was the question.
Well,
anyway.
If the Kundalini has been bad, it's going to go to the Canary Islands. And Santa may not visit the Canary Islands if the Kundalini has been bad. but what happens when a person dies is the divine potential that is resting at the base of the spine in everybody's body. When that body expires, well, then so does the Kundalini just go straight back to the divine. Kundalini doesn't have a heaven or a hell. It's a divine consciousness. It's a divine energy. In some ways, Kundalini itself is always connected, shall we say, vis-a-vis an interdimensional connection to the divine. It's a very simple matter that when that person's body expires, their consciousness will go to where they need, shall we say, education on their continuing journey or their continuing evolution. But also the Kundalini itself just goes back into the divine force that it's from. Kind of like water. when the water spills from a container and is laying there, say, on the pavement, we'll just say that it's a hot pavement, it evaporates. Where does that water go when it evaporates? Does it form a cloud? What does it do? What are the components of water vapor, and where does it go? Well, it goes back into the world. It goes back into the world that has been supporting that person, that living body. Well, the same thing with the Kundalini, except the Kundalini just goes a little bit to a different area. It goes into that which has created this world, created the cosmos, created the multiverse. Okay? It goes back into itself, from which it was given during, at the moment of conception. So that's pretty much what happens to the Kundalini. And then, now if the person is awakened their Kundalini, such as Celestial Rubies, Andrew Parmalee, Julia, Elizabeth, MJ Henderson, Foshji too, even though I don't see Foshji here. For the folks that have awakened their Kundalini, well, that changes things. When the awakened Kundalini person dies, the Kundalini itself does not leave that individual, does not part with that consciousness, the human consciousness. It goes with the consciousness. It travels to, shall we say, the areas where people are educated on how they did, what were the goals, what were the patterns of probabilities, how well were those explored, what were the noble qualities that were expressed, what were the noble qualities that weren't expressed, where were the challenges, where were the victories, all the different areas that make up a human life, and the decisions and the emotions and the information and the compassion and the care and the outreach and the inner reach of a person as they go through their lives. The Kundalini will stay with them because they have awakened it. And they will come into their expression, karma intact, because they're going to have to burn some karma. And they may, like myself, when I was a child, I had all the Kundalini phenomena. And so shall you. And so shall others who begin to manifest a greater understanding, comprehension, and interactivity with the Kundalini. And for all those people that I just mentioned, you guys are up for that. For a person that hasn't awakened it, well, then it doesn't travel with them. But for a person that has awakened it, it follows you into the areas of death, the areas where a person's soul goes, as after the physical container has passed. So there you have it. Oh, I see Jan. Hello, Jan. Good to see you. Saying hello. And Santara, are you there? Should I put you into the red? There you go.
Yes. Thanks, Chrism. The next question is, why is dreaming important for the Kundalini? And is there something wrong if I don't remember my dreams?
Within the awakening context, so a person, shall we say, has been activated or awakened, the dream life is one of the major points of communication that the Kundalini will be able to communicate directly with the person. And once again, as I've said in other programs here, the Kundalini dream interpretation is very, very different than any of the any of the dream interpretations that you'll buy at Barnes & Noble or on Amazon. Nobody is covering Kundalini dream interpretation, and that's actually going to be one of the ebooks that I put out. Kundalini dream interpretation is very, very, very specific and very, very, very symbolic in its images, in its feel, in its content, and how that content is presented. Kundalini dream interpretation requires somebody who has walked that talk, somebody who is awakened. Number one, you need to be awakened in order to really understand the content and the symbolism behind a dream interpretation. Let me give you an example. Last night, I was blessed to be in the presence of Julia, and Julia is BEAIVI here in the chat room. So hello, Julia, and everybody say hello to Julia. Give her a heart, give her a hug, give her a smile. And we were at a place that, where a group of people were getting together, and we were talking about Kundalini, and was talking to me about how he'd done Kundalini yoga for 3 years, and nothing had occurred, and he did all these other things, and he was really, really, really interested and eager to have the Kundalini Awakening, but he just found that all of these different systems and all of these different yogas just weren't doing it for him. And he would put in the work, but he wasn't getting it. There wasn't anything that was going on with these things. And even though he tried it and did it conscientiously, it wasn't happening. And at that moment, when I was looking at him, I saw a black cobra that was connected to his occipital region of his skull come up from the back of his head and look at me as the head of it stood about 4 inches over his head. And it was just looking at me. And I knew instantly that was a very, very positive sign for this individual, and that, yes, indeed, the Kundalini in him knows that he is interested, knows that he is searching, and brought him to that meeting we had last night. And he is coming to the seminar here in February in the Twin Cities area at the Best Western Hotel. And if you want to, anybody wants to get a hold of the person coordinating that would be Rosemary Goliath at rosemaryg@usinternet.com. There you go. rosemaryg@usinternet.com is the person to call for that. And he did. It was a very, very clear signal and symbol of Kundalini just guiding this person. And it's really difficult for people to feel guidance sometimes. They just feel compelled to do this or that. They come into information, seemingly serendipitously, and when in fact it is not serendipitous. It is not accidental. There is a definite consciousness guiding that person to come to a meeting like we did last night, to try the different and different systems that a person can try and go through with regards to attaining the Kundalini Awakening experience. And basically, this person has been, I think he's gonna get it. I think he's gonna get it, in a good way, in a very, very, very good way. And so, yeah. I guess I lost Santara here. Aww. Well, okay, so we will just go ahead and continue with this. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about today were teachers, Kundalini Awakening teachers, or teachers that appear to know everything and about the Kundalini, and they don't have the Kundalini themselves. Okay. You need to be very, very, very discerning with Kundalini teachers. Now, you say, let's just use our Facebook group, Kundalini Awakening ! Somebody will ask a question, how do I know my Kundalini's coming up? And you're going to get, because we have 4,400 people on that group, you're going to get a whole slew of people saying, wow, if you're able to turn an orange peel yellow, then you'll know you have Kundalini. Or, if you feel kind of like a rice noodle, then you'll be able to know that you have Kundalini. Or, if you feel like your ears are buzzing on one side and then your big toe is vibrating on the other side, then, they come up with the most amazing instructions, shall we say, for the Kundalini person. And I just want you to be very discerning. Even on the group that I started, where I state, it's stated there, Chrism is the teacher, people just don't care. They're just going to go right around that, and they're just going to start giving advice and all of this type of stuff. And I'm getting ready to make some changes on that group to stop erroneous and possibly harmful information from being given to people that are just coming into the Kundalini, where life-changing scenarios can occur to a person, and we don't need people just going in there and, telling them that if you sniff a banana peel, then you're Kundalini awakened. So be very, very, very discerning. If they have writings, read their writings. Feel if it moves you. Feel if it moves you to want to trust them with your life. Feel if it moves you to really begin to do a practice. Do they have a practice? Are they depending on a lineage for validation? A lot of teachers depend on their lineage for validation. Oh yes, I come from the Yogananda lineage, or I come from the Babaji lineage, or I come the Maitreya lineage, and I come from this or that lineage. I forget the lineages. Forget that. When you're looking at a teacher, look at what they're saying, what they're writing, what they're communicating. How does that feel to the energy that's beginning to awaken in you? Are they scaring you? Are they trying to dominate you? Are they asking you for money? What is it they're doing? And why are they doing it? And are they willing to tell you why they are doing it? It's very important. You don't just take anybody's word for it. Look at a paper trail. Do you go to anybody that just, oh yeah, I'm an MD. Yep, Major Domo. I'm an MD. How the heck are you? Take off your clothes and let me examine you. Do you do that? Or do you go, oh, he's an MD, says he's an MD. Okay, he's got that certificate on the wall, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, whatever. He specializes in endocrinology, cum laude, all of that stuff. Then okay, maybe at least there's some sort of a paper trail for this person. Well, with the Kundalini teacher, the people that are pretending or, wanting to be a Kundalini teacher without having it, you need to be very, very, very careful. As I was saying at this meeting last night, clearly 25 to 33% of the people who have Kundalini don't know they have the Kundalini can commit suicide. And that is not something to mess with. Oh my gosh. Everybody, I would like to let you know that we are now currently blessed with the presence of Her Holiness, who is now in the hot place. Let's bring her online. Hello, Satana. How are you?
Sizzling.
I heard that about you.
Okay. Are you ready for another question?
Ask the next question. Yes,
okay. Entities, Chrism.
Okay.
I'm going to read them and all together. Where do entities come from? Are they the souls of people who have died? Are entities just ghosts? Do we need protection from entities?
Okay,
and how is that best?
Wait.
Yep.
Ask the first question.
Where do entities come from?
Entities come from, there's a few places. An entity can be developed by concentrated thought forms. Okay. I believe in the Tibetan, and Julia can correct me if I'm wrong, if she's here. Yes, she's here. In the Tibetan framework, an entity called a tulpa can be created, and this tulpa is an entity that starts out as a thought form, and this thought form is given energy and an agenda. And as that thought form begins to collect energy as part of its agenda, it can begin to, depending on what its agenda is, can begin to bother other people. Okay, many people who have passed on, but that are in, shall we say, a station of learning about what it is to meet their karma in the afterlife, those people, which we would refer to as ghosts or just people that have died, those people can become entities as well. Those people that were very enthusiastically torturing or hurting others, well, they may be commanded to continue with that. And as they torture and hurt other people, they just do it in a different way. And these entities can also become a source of testing for an individual. There are many. And then you have the UFO entities. You have those. You have the different species and different races of entities can come. I mean, it's a very, very, very crowded aquarium. The only reason we're not aware of it is because we're limited by our five senses, which is, we live within the limited understandings purposefully, so that we can move further into trust and sincerity and faith and all these qualities that are very, very positive, very divine qualities. So, yeah, they come from many, many various areas, including the death of a person and let's say a hungry ghost is also that quality. And then you have demons on top of that, and these demons do this or that. And you have the angelics, and the angels do this or that. There's still a very big balance scenario between good and bad, and what does that represent, and how has a person worked within those areas, and depending upon how they've worked within those areas will determine their placement in some areas as they wait. They're either waiting for the next body, or they don't want to have a next body, or they're waiting for another body to be forced upon them in order to meet that karma. So there are many, many, many sources for the creation of an entity that would bother a Kundalini awakened individual. Okay? And you got to remember that within the Kundalini context, Kundalini will allow you to be bothered by entities so that you're able to come into the understandings that life is not what your society is telling you it is. There is much more to conscious life than we are led, or than we are educated in the United States, at least, and Europe, to understand. Far more to life and living. And there's far more at stake. Outside of the human body, there is no time as we understand it. Okay? So there's a foreverness quality, a quality of foreverness that an entity goes through, and it's constantly in a state of now, because there isn't anything other than now. There's no past, there's no future. It's just now. And they respond with what the agenda, the divine, has given to them in regards to their karma to apply to the living. If they're even allowed to apply it to the living. Some of them, they're in their own world of pain and abuse and whatnot, and they just have to struggle in that world for a while and accept what help can be given to them. And that would be through an angelic structure or a guidance structure that is of a positive quality. What's your next question with regards to the entities, Santara?
You've answered that. Do we need protection, and how is that best done?
Protection is best given from oneself, but there are other ways. For instance, I was passing out some satchels night before last that are really, really strong grounding points for people that might be having entities soon. And this was at the gathering for the KA1 Minnesota seminar in September. And so I gave out about 12 of those satchels, and that can be very, very, very helpful if they don't open the satchel. If they open the satchel, they just kind of ruined it, for them. Do we need protection? Yes, sometimes we do, I have to say. I've just worked with an individual. Well, let me back up a little bit. There are individuals on this world that through whatever karmic reason and whatever decision-making choices that they have made that they become completely taken over with entities. I mean, possessed by like 10,000 of them. Okay? And these entities go around using that person's body to attract other people into giving themselves in a spiritual way to that person who is possessed. You do need protection from those people, and a very little protection goes a very, very long ways. And because the entities know who Chrism is, and they know what I teach, and they know what I do, and they know that they're not happy about that, they always guide people away from Chrism. But that doesn't always work. Okay, I just worked with a woman who had been dominated by this group of entities for about a couple of years now, giving them, living on welfare, or at least, that country's version of welfare. She had a single daughter, or she has a daughter, she's a single mother, and yet these entities were sucking her dry of the money she needed to feed herself and that child. So yeah, sometimes we need to have protection from these entities that do that. For the most part, I'll say ignore all entities. Do not pay them any attention. Attention is the food that they require in order to be validated and in order to continue to do the hurtful things that they typically like to do. I will not say in absolutist terms that all entities are bad or negative. Not at all. But the good ones typically don't possess you. And this goes right into channelers. The good ones don't channel through a living person. Okay, but I'll just kind of skip that part for the moment because I know we have a lot of people listening who love channeling. So with regards to protection, the one thing that I know that works for sure is if you go to Kundalini Awakening Systems, #1.com, and you go to to the left-hand menu, and you these are drop-down menus, and you go to I think it's about Chrism or something like that, and it shows a picture of Chrism. You copy that picture, you hard copy it. Hard copy the picture so you can carry it around with you. Also go to the Facebook page, Chris Mitchell, I believe is what it is on Facebook. And you can hard copy that picture on the Facebook page as well. All you have to do really to protect yourself from entities is stare into the eyes of the picture. Because if the entities are there with you, they will see what you're seeing. And they will know who this is. And they will either leave, or they'll either try to talk you out of, listening or looking at Chrism. But for the most part, I've seen them leave. Okay. For people that are very conversant, for the people that have been talking to the entities that are trying to possess them, the entities, because you've tossed out that line of communication, and therefore you've given them permission to actually talk and communicate with you telepathically. They will say, oh, don't go to him. We know about him. Don't go to him. Okay. And I've had various people say that the entities have said that, and once they start looking at the picture, they lose touch with the entities. And the entities lose touch with them, which is a good thing. And so I will say that I would suggest that you would use that picture. The picture is of Chrism and the Kundalini, but it's mostly the Kundalini that is shining through his face, shining into those eyes, and from those eyes into your eyes, from your eyes into the consciousness of the entity and goodbye entity. Okay? That is one way that you can get rid of them. And the other way, which I strongly recommend, is just to ignore them at all costs. Never talk. Never cuss at them. Never make threats of them. Never, hold a cross and go, by order of Jesus, you must leave, because that's just not going to work. Especially if you're a Buddhist. You know, a lot of people like to do that. It just, God, they laugh. They laugh. Okay. Another way you can do is you can just be very, very, very grounded. You can carry some. I suggest sea salt or any of that, like Dead Sea salt is good too. Just carry some of that with you. It's very grounding. It's very, very grounding. Put some in your purse, put some in your sock, put some in your shoe, whatever. Put some in your wallet. I mean, and just know that it's there. And just by knowledge, the knowledge of it being there, that knowledge is carried over into your aura. Your aura is being read by entities. The entities will say, oh, gee, he's got a pretty good grounding circuit going there. To make it a lot harder to possess this person, let's move on to easier prey. Okay? It's very, very predatorial in the entity world. And it's just not flesh and blood that they're looking to consume. It's that which illuminates your flesh and blood, that Kundalini that they're looking for. That's the food they want. And if you don't pay them attention, if you don't initiate a conversation or any kind of a communication with them, they don't get to eat, and they'll move somewhere else where it's easier. It's easier to get. And the next question would be something like, well, how could you do that? How could you let them move on? Why don't you stop them in their tracks? Well, that is not part of how things work. The entities are allowed to touch base with a person behind the five senses or behind the veil. Entities are allowed to do that because they're so corrosive and corrupting, that it allows a very, very strong level of testing for a person's ethics, for a person's morality, for how that person wants to express themselves in this life. That's why they're allowed to try and make contact with you. Doesn't mean that you have to complete that circuit or to complete that communication. And I'm suggesting you don't. You can hear them. They know you can hear them. You just choose to respond. That's the ticket. That's the key. And that's something that the Kundalini will very much support. Okay. Next aspect of that question, Tara?
You've covered some of it, Chrism. Can you hear me? Yeah. And you've covered it. What about so a person is ignoring it and is living their life and doing the safer deeds. What about? Could you say something about the crucible of reversal in relation to entities?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, when you get into the crucible of reversal, the entities have already infested you. You've spoken with them in some way. Your interaction with them has allowed them to start courting you, or to start, shall we say, having energetic interactions with you. And this is not a good thing. On the one hand, and on the other hand, it is a good thing because it really claim your seniority and ownership of your five-body system. Okay? It allows you to have seniority and ownership of your five-body system without the interference of entities. And what the crucible of reversal does is, for every negative thing that you are instructed to do by the entities that are trying to possess you or are possessing you, you do the exact opposite in the way of goodness, in the way of love, in the way of forgiveness, in the way of tolerance, in the way of truth. And from that aspect of truth, everything they tell you to do, they soon begin to figure out that every bad thing they tell you to do is going to turn into a very, very positive action of grace upon this world, which is contra to what their agenda is for you. And they will move on to people who are not going to initiate the crucible of reversal. That's what it's about. that came to me through my own experiences with being possessed and with being, with having entities, all over the place, and, the bad ones. I was, one of these days we'll do a show just on entities and another one just on entities, and I'll tell you some of the things that happened to me. I tend to be very cautious about that because I don't want to program people. The topics that I'm discussing right now, they happen to more than 1,000 people. I mean, it's not so uncommon among the Kundalini populations. The awakened population is not. Most of the awakened population, the people there are very cogent and conscious of the phenomena of entities and what their agenda is and what they try to do and how they do it, and the modus operandi of what an entity or a group of entities do. And I want you to understand, it's not all about just one single entity. It's typically a group of them that will grab you and try to hold on to you and try to suck your energy, to try to steal your energy away from you. It's very important that you claim your presence, you claim your body. It belongs to you. It's the most beautiful gift, the gift of life, the gift of expression, the gift of spiritual evolution through a fleshly container. This is designed for your evolution. Don't let it be stolen from you by a horde of entities. And this goes back to what I was talking about before Centaura came back on, about choosing your teachers very, very carefully. There's one teacher, KundaliniTeacher.com, I think is what it is. I'm not sure. But this person, has a cloud. I mean, jillions of entities around them. And she doesn't know how to do. She doesn't know how to deal with them at all. Although she calls herself this teacher, right? And so the students of this teacher, come to me and ask me how to get rid of the thousands of entities that are screaming at them, cussing at them, telling them to do this or that. I mean, 24/7 loud volume noise inside your head. Think about it, folks. Think about it. Think about a stadium of people inside your head cussing at you, telling you to commit suicide, telling you to kill that child, telling you to step out in front of that train, telling you to hurt that other person, telling you to steal from that other person, telling you to do all the things that you know are not the right thing to do. 24/7. Think about it. Amelia said she's in the warm place. Well, let me tell you, the people that are having this happen right now, they're in the very, very, very hot place. Well, they are still in the body. They're not dead. Some of them will be soon, though. They will step out in front of that train or that bus or that car. They will slit their wrists or, do whatever the entities are telling them to do because they don't know what else to do. Many of the entities will possess a person and say, I am God. You must do as I tell you to do. Seriously. It sounds like I'm a cartoon version of God, and in many ways I am. Very cartoonish. But this is what the entities will do to a person who is, say, very, very, very theologically oriented. So I am Buddha, I am Christ, I am Krishna, I am Zoroastrian, I am the Godhead, I am the Holy of the Holies, I am Jesus, I am Mary. They will make those claims to try to persuade you to do what they tell you to do. And it's typically not a good thing that they are telling you to do. And they will give you all kinds of reasons for it. You've been bad on this world and you must start again. You must die now so that you can start again. How can you start again if you don't die now? Step out in front of that train. This is how they work. And there are your heart goes out to people who believe this and then take their own life. especially that first 33% of the Kundalini awakened who don't know that they're awakened with the Kundalini. They don't know anything about it because our society doesn't support it, and because it doesn't support it, it doesn't teach us about it. Next question, or part of that question, my dear Santara.
Thank you so much, Chrism, for that. No, I have no other questions regarding entities. Will I move on?
Yes.
Okay. Is meditation on the third eye in particular a good practice to be doing?
No.
I thought that. Okay.
No, wait. I'll expand on that. Here's the thing. Now, when the Kundalini comes to you, your eyes will want to go into the back of your head. Your eyes will want to go up, and it'll almost look like you just have the whites of your eyes showing through your eyelids, and your eyes will be pulled back by the Kundalini, and that's one thing. That's a different thing. That's a very healthy thing. If you don't have the Kundalini already coming up, and you're just going for the power of having that third eye open. Oh, Chrism, what kind of power am I going to get? I get this question quite a bit. If you're doing it for that reason, you have some really, really big problems. Migraine headaches. You're going to have very, very, very difficult dream life. You may have some strong physiological symptoms, some twitchings of the eyes. Once again, the headaches, a sickness, a malaise feeling, a feeling of no energy at all, lethargy that is not connected to the Kundalini. It's connected to storming the gates of heaven. It's connected to trying to activate a source of power without understanding what that means, without understanding what the ramifications are, without having a pure enough intent. And without going to the base of the tailbone first, rather than just going straight to the pineal gland first. You don't go to the pineal gland. You don't hyperstimulate the pineal gland unless you want to have problems. And yet, so many people from India, they're just okay, look up, look up, look up, look up, look up. Do the meditation and look up. They're taught that it's ingrained in people in certain parts of the world, not just India, but other parts of the world too. This is what you got to do. And I'm saying, no, meditate. Just close your eyes, leave your eyes open. But don't look up unless you're also doing lower chakra work. Unless you're actually working with the Kundalini, whether it's awake in you or not, or activated in you or not, you know that this is what you want to do, or at least you know enough to begin to meditate in a way that allows this to occur for you. And, Rosemary, you're so kind. What is that? Water. Oh, thank you. Okay, so eyes up position for Kundalini activated or awakening people. There's not really much of a choice. It's the Kundalini will pull your eyes up. For those who want to come into the Kundalini, people that are coming to the seminar, et cetera, and so forth, people who are really interested in Kundalini, then yes, meditate with your eyes up, but squeeze your sphincter at the same time. Give your awareness, give your spiritual awareness to the first chakra. Ground yourself with the first chakra. If you're sitting in an easy pose, which is just, your legs crossed together and your spine's, sort of straight, visualize an energetic trunk, like a tree emanating from the tip of your tailbone into the earth. Look at it from where you are. See it expand like the roots of a tree down as far as your imagination can take you. Okay, visualization is very important. When in a greater context, what you visualize becomes a real thing within the Kundalini, a real thing. So visualize that strong grounding cord, and then yes, of course, go with your eyes up. Eyes up is part of the safety protocols. It's an ocular mudra. Okay, just like you have ocular mudras, you have and there are more than one ocular mudras. It's not just eyes up. You can, the eyes are slightly crossed, the eyes are down, the eyes are looking left, looking right. There are many different ocular mudras. There are many different lingual mudras with your tongue. I know 5 different stations on the soft palate of the mouth where the tongue tip can go to have different manifestations occur. So when you're doing your meditation and you want the Kundalini to awaken, then bring the eyes up. If you're following the safeties, definitely bring the eyes up, because the safety protocols are a standalone Kundalini activation technique, practice, meditation, call it what you will. Standalone. And so, of course, I will have people putting their eyes up. But for a person just like, I just want to be calm and healthy. And no, I would say just leave your eyes looking straight ahead. You can still meditate without having your eyes go up. But I know the yoga schools and the Hindu schools and the Buddhist schools and all these different schools will have you put your eyes up. And I also know that they don't know how to solve the issues that can bring, unfortunately, for those who are having the problem. Okay, go on, Santara, if there's more to that.
No, there's no more to that, Chrism. The next one has been asked before, but it pops up, so I'm asking it again. How long does it take to awaken Kundalini, and is it related with past lives?
468 days, 39 hours, 46 minutes, and 17 seconds. Next question.
The police have just pulled up here in 2 seconds. Seriously, I might be blocking them where I'm parked. Okay, I think it's okay. They're smiling.
Wait. I was joking. I was joking.
They're smiling at me. I didn't even hear you. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I think I said 460 days, 39 hours, 40 minutes, and 17 seconds, I think, something.
Oh, okay. No, I know you're joking.
Wait. It depends on how a person is going about the activation sequence. If they're getting Shaktipat from a Satguru, or somebody can do that, then it can be very little time. I mean, a matter of seconds or microseconds. How long does it take a person to look at you? How quickly do the eyeball muscles focus on an individual? And when that person being focused on, how quickly does the Kundalini flow from the eyes into the spine of that person to Shaktipat that person? It can be exceptionally fast. Exceptionally fast. If you're going about it through, say, Kriya Yoga, Yogananda's system, it can take you 20, 25 years. If you're just going at it from a straight Buddhist or Hindu perspective, it can take you 50 years. Even longer. If you're trying to go for the short path by taking drugs or different entheogens, meaning herbs and plants and different things that have hallucinogenic properties, you can do it quicker that way, but you can also get lost very fast that way. I mean, talk about walking on a razor's edge. And it's very, very easy to lose your balance when you're taking the short path. I never recommend it, but I know people will do it. I know that I would have done it. I would have taken the short path, I'm sure, because I was so impatient. Okay, and then this is the short path is the one that will introduce you to entities, will introduce you to hell, will introduce you to many of, shall we say, the non-glamorous areas of the Kundalini Awakening. So different formats will take different amounts of time. If you come to a seminar, you should be able to start feeling phenomena inside of 90 days, if not that day or night. When I give a Shaktipat, sometimes it's instant. Sometimes it's there just through the speaking of words at the seminar. I don't even have to give them a Shaktipat. Sometimes it takes 6 hours after the Shaktipat is given. Sometimes the person won't feel anything for days and days and days, and when they do, they won't be able to stretch their mind back to the fact that they went to a Kundalini Awakening seminar. They won't have listened to the material, they won't read their workbook, and they will forget that the phenomena they're feeling has already been discussed with them. So really, for every individual, depending on what path they choose to walk, will determine the length of time it takes for a person to come into an activation. And let's not forget karma. Let's not forget karma. Karma is the ultimate arbiter. Kundalini, the divine forces, created karma as an evolutionary tool to allow people to overcome inconsistencies in their divine expression that their choices, kind of push them into. So karma is really our friend in the long run, but in the short term, we look at a lot of people that that know about karma are very much afraid of it. Oh my God, I hope I don't have that karma. Or oh God, look at that person's karma is so bad. Oh my God, I don't have stepping in front of a train karma. I hope I don't have that. Oh, I hope I don't have falling down Rosemary's really small, tiny spiral staircase karma. So karma will come into play. But here's the deal with karma. If a person is even knowledgeable in the Western societies of Kundalini, karma even had something to do with that person's knowledge of the word Kundalini. Okay? I'd like to say hello to Fashji. Hello, Fashji. I see you there. So there are plenty of different timelines that a person can partake of that have definite practices, techniques, belief systems, ideologies, intentions behind them. The short path is a faster path, but it's a dangerous path, very, very dangerous path. The Shaktipat path is a short path. It's somewhat dangerous too if you don't have a guru or a teacher who is willing to do follow-up work with you. I said it last night and I've said it before. I'm not allowed to abandon people that I give Shaktipat to. They can abandon me. That's not the problem. But I cannot abandon them. Now, if they abandon me, then they pretty much take me out of that responsibility too for them. But I will not abandon the person. I will work with those people. I will work with Rosemary, with Eileen, with Santara, with Julia, Andrew, Julie, Elizabeth, Dalton, Gonzalez, Fashji, the three guests we have at MJ Henderson, and anybody else that comes to the seminar. I will follow your grace and see how you're doing and allow you to talk and to, help you with this. I'll give you all the reading material, all the safety material, all the stuff that we can do to make this a very, very, very beautiful experience. It doesn't have to be bad. It's only bad because of a few different things, karma. But typically your karma during your childhood, typically, for a person that has the probability of Kundalini awakening, it's a childhood karma burn-off that will really lighten the load for the Kundalini person and later on, say in their 20s or 30s. You took care of your karma during the childhood. Of course, during your childhood, your teenage years, and your 20s, you created a lot more karma, which is also quite, people do that. The 20s, the 20s can be a fairly challenging time for people here in the United States, at least. So there are different timelines for different people. I am not ever going to say, oh, well, let's just generalize on timelines. That was the first answer I gave you, like 468 days or something like that. I know Glenn Morris, when I went to his seminar back when he was alive, I forget when that was. I think 2006 or something like that, or 2004 maybe. He made the claim of 60 days, or 30 days. I think he made the claim of 30 days. But you have to remember, Glenn Morris is a martial artist, and he wasn't really going into entities or any of that type of stuff. He was more about stripping an opponent of their power. Okay, a lot like what they do in Indonesia with a technique called Marga Luyu, Margalulu. Okay, this is not where I'm coming from at all, and I never have. I've taken martial arts because it was a great way to give self-confidence and things like that when I was a kid. But for me, Kundalini is not about violence. It is not about, hurting other people. The ahimsa comes in so strong for me that you do no harm. Do not kill. It doesn't mean I don't get pissy. Doesn't mean that at all. Oh, wow, Rosemary, in your house here. It doesn't mean I don't get pissy. It just means that I don't allow that pissiness to brutalize people, except my closest students like Rosemary and Eileen and Centaura. Rosemary.
Yeah.
Come over here. I would like everybody to be introduced to Her Holiness, Mother Superior, Rosemary Goliath. I'm at her house, and I'd like you to say hello to everyone.
Hello. I think I've said hello many times, and it was fun. I got an email, a question about the seminar, and when somewhere in there, the gentleman said, I've heard you several times on the web radio. So that's true for most of your listeners, Chrism. But it is a delight to have Chrism here and to be truly in his radiance and to receive from him in many verbal ways and other ways.
How about when I'm a meanie?
Well, that's not too often, really.
When you're driving.
Yeah.
And we almost die.
Well,
because we're driving on the wrong side of the road all of a sudden.
No. But it's all, it's a gift at this point to have him here, and it is because of the work that we've done here to provide opportunities for more people to hear him. And that's very touching for me. It's with 2 evenings, very powerful, and especially the one we started with people from the seminar, and some of you were there. It was just amazing and almost like a full day's time in hours with him and impact. And last evening, as he had mentioned, I think there were 12 people there. One of them a couple of them have seen the film. And
the Kundalini film.
Mm-hmm. And to see them be touched and there is a question for them of coming. They get the value of being in a seminar with Chrism. And we have 3 or 4 more to do yet. 4 more.
Yeah, when I, as Rosemary was saying last night, as I walk into the place where the seminar is going to be given, the Kundalini has itself kind of just turned down low because it knows that, to a large degree, the people I come in contact with, like if you're at the grocery store filling the station, unless they have an illness or they have some sort of a thing that they need healed or worked upon in that way, they don't need to be given a Shakti punch. However, when I start speaking, or I should say when the Kundalini starts speaking, it gets very, very hot. Very, very hot. A lot of energy starts coming through, and it heats the room. Seriously, I mean, there was a guy sitting right in front of me, and he even said he had a hard time focusing because of the amount of energy he was being blasted with. So this is something for people to consider. This is something come to one of these talks if you can. We're here in Minnesota. Fly over from Tahiti. Fly over from Indiana. Fly over from the hot place.
Or call your friends who live in the cities here and invite them to this opportunity too.
Yeah, well, if the friends are interested in Kundalini, for sure. But Rosemary's house is built on sacred ground. Evidently, according to the Native Americans of this area, this was a sacred ground area, and evidently they're okay with Rosemary's house and some of the other houses being here. They are not in any way being injured. They have enough confidence in their spirituality to realize that their spirituality will just go and envelop Rosemary and her deceased husband who built the house here. There are entities here because we're literally living on like a graveyard, for Native Americans. But they're pretty friendly. They're not there to possess people. They're not there to hurt people. They're not there to wickedly program people weirdly in any way, shape, or form. And even the entity I just saw was very benign, not a big deal. Okay. But I just wanted you to hear from Rosemary. I wanted you to feel from the tone of her voice, from the words that she selected to say to you about what is occurring here and how she feels about it and what happens with her. And I want to extend my thanks to Rosemary for her hospitality, for her administrative skills. She organized this entire thing from scratch, folks. From scratch. This is all her deal. And she's been ably assisted by Eileen Laurel, who has also put on more than one seminar, and Eileen does an excellent job as well, as does Santara, who has put on quite a few of the seminars. I think Santara's probably done the most, next to me. And I want to thank all of these people for their great gift that they give into the populations. It just so happens that at this point I am the teacher, but I could see each one of them being a teacher at another time and having the same thing done for them as their Kundalini comes up. Yeah.
I would like to add to that. Like, my office is here in my home downstairs. As Chrism said, this is a 2-story. It's an octagon log house, and the upstairs is where I have my practice. And I have come to see, it was 3 years in September that I started, but I saw in the last year how sacred a place this is for me and how sacred this work is for me. It's unlike anything else I've ever done, even though it might even appear like it. It's not. And it's just what I do. It is what my life is about at this time as service, and deeply in my heart for everyone to have this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you for providing that opportunity. Okay, and I'd like to welcome Josephine Smith, Her Holiness, in the 805 area code. Thank you for calling in, my dear. Good to see you. Satara, next question if you have one.
I have, Chrism. How can I explain Kundalini to someone who has no idea of what it is?
Wow. Well, there are many, many different ways to do that. You can take them to a website. You can get the Kundalini movie by Nitin Adsul, A-D-S-U-L. You can look that up on the web. He's on Amazon, and he's, the different movie channels. And that is a very good way to introduce a person to Kundalini, because he really, really, really did it for the person who has no idea whatsoever. And he did an excellent job. And it's not about Chrism so much. It's about the Kundalini. He has people who hate me. He has people that really, there was this one speaker, I forget which one it was. One of the other speakers on the movie threatened to sue Nitin if he didn't put a disclaimer into the movie saying that in no way, shape, or form is he affiliated with Chrism in any way whatsoever. So I felt honored to be singled out that way. But yeah. Seriously, you didn't know that, did you?
Wow. Okay.
Nitin called me up and he says, Chrism, he says, this guy so and so, who I won't mention, it's probably best that I don't mention it.
Probably best not to.
This guy said he's going to sue me if I don't put in this disclaimer that distances him from you. And I said, go ahead, put the disclaimer in. It's not about me. It's not about me being validated through the ego. It's about the people that are going to be educated from this film. And so he put it in, and he's won quite a few awards for the movie from different countries. And he's actually just finished, I believe, working on a movie that deals with soulmates and that type of thing. And so he seems to be going into a spiritual direction with his filmmaking. But he did a great job with this Kundalini Awakening film. It's about an hour and a half, and it's G-rated, and for a family, it's a good introduction to Kundalini. For an individual, it's a good introduction to Kundalini. That's one way, and of course, as I mentioned, the websites are another way. You can also get a person a book. You can also just casually begin to describe what you know of Kundalini and ask them if they felt anything like that before, and you'll be able to discern their level of fear or contempt or acceptance or any of the various responses that a person has, whether they are pro or not supportive of the understandings and ideologies that come with the Kundalini. Okay, gently. Don't go into phenomena. That's one thing that scares the heck out of people, the phenomena. Don't go into entities. Don't go into many of the subjects that we deal with here, unless that person is experiencing it and they need to know more information. Well, that's different. But to just start telling people that, oh, yeah, these entities, they'll come along and they'll possess you and the Kundalini lets it happen, and oh, my God, it's like, and then you end up on the Canary Islands with a really bad internet connection. It's horrible.
But it's true, though, what you're saying about phenomenon, and what you said about the film, because, when I had my Kundalini Awakening, it was quite a while before I told anybody, and it was a very gradual process. But I had friends who had noticed a difference in me, and the time had come to begin to speak about it because I was organising my first seminar in Ireland. And so, I had to step up to the plate and talk about Kundalini and be open about it. Up until then, I had really kept it quite hidden. And the film was one of the ways that I did that, Chrism, with my friends. There was a particular group that I called over and put on the film, and that was how I introduced it to them, because a lot of them would have been very much in the Christian tradition. And I mean, the word Kundalini was like something they had never heard of. And a lot of the things that, anyway, so that's what I did. And that was really, really helpful for two particular groups of people. And even for my sisters, when the time came, that's my first introduction to it. And it was easy to expand from there then,
And that's all you have are sisters, right?
Yes.
How many sisters?
And that is more than enough.
So the movie.
I have 5 sisters. Yes, 3 of them. So I don't mention the other 2.
A little forgiveness there.
Yes. And actually, I was smiling as you were speaking there to all of us and to Rosemary about driving. When you mentioned about driving, you've been a bit pissy and commenting about traveling on the other side of the road, and I thought, wow, is that not something you deliberately do in order for me to practice my tolerance and my forgiveness?
For you,
an opportunity.
for Rosemary, it turns into a life and death equation.
Okay.
Now, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez writes, she says, when I showed it here, the movie, last, my 11-year-old paid more attention than some of the adults. This is good for kids. The kids, I think that many of the children intuitively know that this is truth. This because they're so recently from, the, shall we say, the interplanes between lives, that they know that this is the truth. They're good with it. They're good. It just has to be presented in a non-threatening format. And this movie is a non-threatening format.
Yes.
Yes.
It is. In many ways, I'll just say it mightn't be the movie I'd make if I was making it, yet it is extremely good for what it does,
Well, yeah. Well, certainly. When Nitin and I, at the time, Nitin was a student of mine, and, he has Kundalini. He definitely has Kundalini activation going on. And, I suggested the movie. And then just from that suggestion, he took it and he ran with it and he made this movie about it. And I think it is really great as an introduction to people that have no clue about Kundalini. If they heard the word Kundalini outside of the movie or a spiritual state of being, they would think it was similar to something like tortellini. It's like, can I get Kundalini on my salad? Can I have some Kundalini? I'd like some of those Kundalini rice noodles, please. So, yeah.
What you mentioned as well, though, Chrism, if the question was about explaining Kundalini to someone who had no idea, but if that someone happens to be a partner or a husband, just to share a bit of my own experience, one of the things that I found very good was your website with John, because it was a great relief to him. He's not listening tonight because we're on the Canaries, but it was a great relief to him to read some of the things that were written, because during my activation stage before the awakening event or the spinal sweep, there was a lot of things that had occurred to me that we had no clue about. And so suddenly for him to read things that were what's the word I'm looking for? Affirming or validated some of my experiences, and for him to see it written there was really, really good in the context of Kundalini. He was able to say, so that was why, I was absolutely frozen one night with, blah, 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 or whatever, the things that had occurred. It was really good. So that's another really good way to introduce it.
Well, that's true. One of the other ways I've had with spouses, it's a very delicate situation, because Kundalini if one spouse interrupts another spouse's activation or awakening consistently, that marriage can be doomed, seriously doomed. Kundalini is a Maha force, meaning it is the most powerful force. And if the Kundalini has the agenda that you're to be awakened and your spouse is blocking that agenda, it can be the last straw for that marriage. And so it's a very delicate thing. What I suggest people do is, I'll have them go to the website and I'll have them copy one of the articles and just leave it on the coffee table. And where they will come to read it, and if they read it and you guys talk about it, and if it's a positive conversation, then sure, then you can move forward with it. If it's a negative conversation, well, you can discern why it's negative to the spouse, why they feel threatened, why they feel upset about it, what's going on with that, and they can either move forward from there or not.
And that rises even, you know, in the context of a person, a spouse being positive. There's also that aspect in that. I mean, that rose for John and me as well. We had to go through aspects of that. And it's very true that when the Kundalini, you know, awakens, that becomes, and John is okay with me saying this, I'm sure, I'm saying it anyway, that actually becomes more important. It is the thing that is the driving force in my life, which is done with consideration and love for my husband, you know, and all of that. But it is the thing that is most important. Does that sound okay? But that's the way it is. That's the way it is in my life.
It does. It sounds just fine. But with you, I would even expand it into, you know, it's through love and devotion to your husband,
yes.
but also to your children, also
yes.
you know, to your family and your friends. It's just, you know, they don't all have to know about it. The spouse certainly needs to know about it, and probably the kids too, to some degree. And have you told your children about Kundalini, Amelia?
Yes, Chrism, because the time had come to do that. Not immediately. I didn't share with everybody immediately because it took me some time as well. You know, I didn't understand it all straight away. So, you know, 2 years passed and I really didn't know a lot about what was happening until I came to your website. And then, you know, I became your student and you helped me with that. And down the road, I began to tell my children about it, my older ones. I've got adults. My eldest guy is 30, whatever he is now, 33 or 33. And so, yeah, I told my older children. And it's interesting because they've all had very different reactions. And, of course, that was back in quite a few, well, six years or so now. And so we've kind of been on a journey together with that too. So they've changed their minds about various aspects of it. And Kundalini actually has communicated to them as well, Chrism, because they have seen things occur. Even my son, who is very skeptical and very intolerant, really, of some, in a nice way. We have fun over it, but he's not very accepting of it. And he has witnessed healing that forces him to stop and say, okay, maybe there's something in this. And Kundalini has communicated.
Is this the police officer?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so Kundalini does, you know, once I made the decision that I was going to share this aspect of my life with my children, because we were all, my children were all brought up in the Catholic Christian faith. And, you know, they went to church and they did all of this. And I was always a bit of a rebel in the context of that as well, and fairly open about, you know, you don't have to. I brought my kids up a little bit differently to the way my mom brought me up, but still within the context of that, you know, religious upbringing, which, you know, I'm very grateful to have received. But when the Kundalini awakened, I couldn't deny that after a while, that this was in, you know, the divine actually awakened within me. And I had to get over my, you know, ego, or it's even ego embarrassment in a way, to speak about it and to acknowledge, you know, what a joy and wonderful thing this was, even though it can be very challenging and all of that as well. And so I had no choice but to start telling my children about it, Chrism. And then the Kundalini stepped right in over time, and I say the Kundalini also communicated to them through me, and they could all, you know, it'd be interesting actually, wouldn't it, to have them all here someday and have a chat about it. You know, they've all got different perspectives and different things that have been given to them, and I know that Kundalini is also in various ways reaching into my children, or my children are coming, you know, into different understandings of it. Yeah.
Well, MJ Henderson on the chat room, and I'm going to give this question to you, my dear, because I'm pretty sure you know what my response will be. MJ Henderson asks, can you explain to Christians in relation to the Holy Spirit?
Oh dear, well Rosemary is there with you. She could answer that perhaps even better than I could, because,
right.
yeah.
Rosemary.
Yeah, would that be okay?
Yeah. Rosemary, can you explain Kundalini to Christians in relation to the Holy Spirit?
It's hard to explain it. It's so clear to me that it is the Holy Spirit.
So,
it is the divine.
How would you explain to them that this is not Satan?
Well,
Lucifer or whatever.
Yeah, what I do is encourage people when they see the film, and I meet with varying degrees of success with people, but to have it not contradict what they already know, but have it deepen what they know and their practice of religion and their belief. And the Catholic is my background, and the Christian, so the Christian religion, and to have it inform and expand, and to realize that we have it in that film very clearly that this is the experience of people throughout the world, throughout time, and that it is just one word from 10,000 years ago. And it's funny, but that becomes an obstacle for people. That when I spoke of it with a couple of my sisters, I wasn't saying Holy Spirit. They were offended because I was using that word. So it takes that expanding your thinking and allowing your own experience of the Holy Spirit to have that name, I guess we could say. It is the action of God.
That's excellent, Rosemary. I'd agree with you. One of the things that I found difficult in relation to that was my upbringing. All aspects of God was always seen as patriarchal or he or male. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. As I was raised, the Holy Spirit wasn't really seen as divine feminine either, or, it was all very male. And my experience of Kundalini, from the very moment it occurred to me, I experienced, the creative female, divine feminine aspect. And I know that that's there in Christianity in relation to Mary as well, but in relation to the Holy Spirit, I had always seen that as male. And so that, when I began talking about it, and so did all my family, that was a very interesting aspect, Did you find that, or would your experience be different around that?
I haven't had those kinds of questions with people about the gender part of it. It just occurred to me something else, and I say this with, as everyone who knows me, and through Chrism, is that I have been raised a Catholic, with time as a nun in leadership in the church, and
Mother Superior.
Yes, as Mother Superior. So. But the point is, what I see, and myself included, when we're looking at Kundalini and the way it is truly presented in the film and through Chrism's life and teachings, it is universal. And there is some difficulty that some Catholics have in some places and some hearts of seeing that God does really belong to everyone and is in everyone. And some Catholics have been trained to believe that they have the only ones who have any truth. And therefore to acknowledge that my expression isn't from these times and the presence of Christ living 2,000 years ago, but the presence of God throughout God's creation is for everyone. And this is the same desire of God, that to be expressed in us. And there can be an expansion of my understanding through the Christian life and through the practice. And the safeties that Chrism talks about are the true Christian virtues that we've been asked to cultivate. And there isn't any more practical practice of the Catholic faith that I know of that I've experienced here with Chrism's leadership. I mean, I did my best, but it was my ego best, I guess I would say. And both of those things seem to impact Catholics being open to it. And I think we have to leave people be with that. When it's their time, they may be able to take that step and just expand their thinking.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Oh, thank you. Yes, God is everywhere. MJ Henderson, thank you. And God is everywhere. And God has more than one name, too.
He has two names?
Many names.
And he is he and she and neither.
Yes, and then, gender, he and she is a description of the human body. That always baffles me, to get hung up with that, it's prior to our thinking, like it all exists, and we just take our ordinary words, and it's a way of managing. I think it's a way of something is too big to handle or to understand, so we use our language, and it limits us, and we feel safer about it.
Yes.
Well, when I encounter Christians that typically they'll challenge me because they see me as something other than a Christian, which I guess is not too far from the truth. And so they'll challenge me with this. It's like, how do you know that this is not of Satan? Or, how do you know that this is of the Holy Spirit? And I'll tell them, by their fruit shall you know them. How is it making you feel? What can you read about St. Teresa of Avila? What can you read about St. John of the Cross? What can you read about St. Francis of Assisi? What can you read about St. Philip of Neri? What can you read about St. Hildegard of Bingen? What can you read about these people? What does the Bible say? Okay, the Bible teaches a Kundalini Awakening. It's just not apparent to those who don't know what to read, don't know what to look for. When Christ says, these things I do, you can do and more, what does that mean? Okay? And that means what? Turning water into wine. Oh, walking on water. Oh, raising the dead. Oh, taking bread from a rock, which I have done, but it was sand on the bread, but never mind. So I just turn it right back at him and says, like, your own Savior says that you can do these things, and how can you say you cannot?
It is amazing, Chrism. After Kundalini, for me anyway, after Kundalini awakened, and I read things, the different way that I then started to see things is amazing. Right,
and MJ Henderson writes, how about healing feeding the poor and healing the sick? I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
How can Jesus have it and it not be of the Holy Spirit? Mm-hmm. How can Jesus say, you have it, and yet it is not of the Holy Spirit? See, I don't get that. That's a contradiction. Okay, and that's what I think, is plaguing the Christian faith in this country, at least. With these levels of contradiction that ministers and other folks in authority within the Christian understandings fail to explain adequately, and the Mother Superior would like to interject.
Chris, when you were saying authority explaining, one of the weaknesses of the Christian Catholic faith, and the other Christians shared that for 12 centuries or so or more, but it is there is a hierarchy of people who make the decisions and who evaluate what is the correct expression of something, and your individual response is just to follow what they say, and most of the time it's been good and accurate and all of that, but it is still not taking personal responsibility. And when you come into this Kundalini activation and awakening, you are there, my understanding, you are standing there with your God. And that's the experience, and you're choosing, and you are there personally. it is you, and so it's not something that you can give over to other holy beings. I'm not discrediting their goodwill and their effort, but it's still outside of oneself.
I don't mind discrediting their goodwill and their effort. If they're holy beings, if they're holy beings,
or their authority, maybe.
If they're holy beings, then they need to take a lot more responsibility for what they're saying. However, I don't want to jump on the Christian understandings, because Christianity has some very, very, very positive, just as M.J. Henderson writes, feeding the sick and feeding the poor and healing the sick, forgiveness, compassion, service. I mean, come on. We can look, we can find the negatives of anything, and in the Kundalini context, of course, a lot of the Christian believers will have a negative response to Kundalini, and that's okay. That's their thing. But
that's just conditioning too, Chrism. It's what Rosemary is saying, isn't it? It's the conditioning, and it isn't until the Kundalini Awakenings that you can see the words of Jesus for what they were, because you let aside the other authority that told you what they meant. You now begin to know exactly what they meant from the revelation that is occurring within your body, within yourself.
Well, yeah. So, but I just want to really leave this aspect of the conversation with the positivity of the Christian understandings, the positivity that can be reached through following the Ten Commandments, through do unto others as you would do unto yourself. I mean, these are very, very, very positive aspects, and these are the areas that I think most Christians will fully embrace and focus upon, and that would be my hope. Andrew Parmalee is waving. I'm not sure what that wave means, but I'm waving back to you, guy. Hello. Waving back to you. M.J. Henderson says, yes, Rosemary, yes. M.J. Henderson also writes, took me a lot of struggle to leave Catholicism and then go back to straighten me out, then leave in peace. And Andrew has left, so he was waving goodbye. So, yeah. These types of conversations, they're very, very delicate, and they need to be treated with the strongest level of delicacy, as far as not inflaming a person's ego or inflaming their fears or inflaming their angers. You don't need to challenge them unless you do. I don't know, most of you may realize that I don't really mind challenging people. But I think there are certain ways that you can challenge people and bring understanding, and certain ways you can challenge people and just bring anger and animosity. Her Holiness would like to speak.
I was just, as you were saying that, Chrism, the danger, of course, there's a little temptation to be righteous about what we do know about Kundalini. So it's just substituting something else for what we believed before in that case. And that's something that I remind myself about it. If somebody is getting really upset by what I'm saying, I have to look and to say, how strong am I in it? It may be disrespectful.
It may be disrespectful, and it may not be ready for them yet to understand. And so we just kind of like say, hey, okay, no worries. It's just something I wanted to explore with you in that level. And thanks for listening. And then you just move on to, wow, what do you think of Duck Dynasty? Yeah. You just move right into Duck Dynasty and you'll be fine. Okay. For those of you that don't know what Duck Dynasty is, that's not a bad thing. Next question, my dear.
I was just going to ask, what's Duck Dynasty? Okay. There's a question. Why does Chrism not allow other teachings and modalities on his?
Oh gosh, I wish you'd have asked that one too. Okay, well, with the 10 minutes that we have left, the reason being is I know from the Kundalini that comes through me what the appropriate level of teaching is for given situations that the Kundalini tells me about. And so I know that I'm coming from a level of integrity, a level of trust, a level of sincerity, a level of love, a level of compassion, a level of healing, a level of comprehension about what I'm being given to say with regards to that certain individual. I cannot say that about other people. A lot of people just want to show themselves as some sort of a great guru or a great wonderful teacher, and they're in it for the ego, and I'm just not going to allow that. Matter of fact, because it is a group that I have created, and I am karmically, in many ways, karmically responsible to that group, I will insist on a very streamlined level of teaching to come through that group. Right now, I wrote on the Awakening ! Group on Facebook, because one person asks a question, and if I'm not up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to answer it, and they go through this whole level of teachings. Oh, you have to put a popcorn in one ear and then a popcorn between the little toe and the next toe in order to understand that you're having Kundalini. Okay? Now that sounds very facetious, and I'm intending it that way, but a person who doesn't know is going to go out looking for popcorn. And then you can extrapolate on that, and they're going to go, and if the person, this person that's couching themselves as a teacher, putting that out there that they're this great teacher, well, they can also say things like, well, okay, you need to cut your wrist a little bit. You need to drain about a pint of blood into a glass, drink that blood, and then you'll be able to taste the Kundalini in it. Don't think I'm kidding. People say, these people get deleted and kicked off the group, but the fact of the matter is that erroneous information is left up there until I see it, or Santara sees it, or Fastji sees it. And Fastji is here right now. Fastji has been very active on that group lately, and he's very, very kind about how he explains to a person, say, look, if you haven't read the group description, please read the group description. This is a teaching group for Chrism. This is not a teaching group for Yogananda. He has his own groups. This isn't a teaching group for Babaji. He's got a billion groups. This isn't a teaching about Maitreya. This is not about these people that are, and a lot of people will wait for a group to get up to about 4,000 people before they come in and try to hijack it. And I'm just not willing to let that happen. And I'm not. Matter of fact, I'm going to make some changes pretty soon here on that group, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to eliminate some of these folks. If they're not reading the safeties, if they're not going at this in a responsible way, if they're just using Sanatana Hinduism, or if they're just using, Vedic things that their best buddy told them, or some sadhu has told them that, oh, you must do this, and you must have the popcorn in the left ear, and you must have the popcorn between the little toe and the big toe. It's just like absolutely silliness. And yet that can be extrapolated into far more harmful understandings that are not necessary for people to have the Kundalini, not necessary for people to come onto the groups that I am administering and basically use that as a pulpit for their guru or for their teachers to contradict me or to say, oh, Chrism is this or that. And I don't really care about that. I care about clear, concise, trustworthy information about the Kundalini coming out. That is my first priority. And I know from the instructions that I've read of people giving to other people that is not the first priority for those who are offering advice. And I will administer this group, as you know, Santara, as Fastji knows, as Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, another administrator, knows. I will administer these groups, and these people will have to leave. And if they don't leave of themselves, I will help them leave, or Elizabeth will help them leave, or Fastji, or Santara. Okay? I will not allow people to be damaged by the content that comes through the groups that I administer. the groups that I have started. The fact that the Shakti is pulling in, we're getting over 100 people a week signing up on that group. Think about that. 100 people a week. Okay, that creates a lot of work for myself, for the other administrators, and if they're not reading that group description, then they don't have any room for complaints. That's how I see it. Oh my gosh, Santara, hello, don't go away.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Now, I apologize. I apologize if I'm offending anybody to one degree, and on another degree, I don't apologize at all. Because
no, you're not offending anybody.
Well, it's my responsibility.
Why would you?
Well, there's that. I'm offending people that want to be the Kundalini, but not have to start a group and bring it up by themselves. They just want to hijack somebody else who's done all the work.
Okay, Chrism, thank you for explaining that one. No, it's really important, though, because when the misinformation is dangerous, it really is, and sometimes there is a lot of misinformation that comes up, and that's not okay. So I think I'm very happy, pleased, and delighted to be of service on the group, to be able to admin it, under your criteria and under what you say the group is about, because I value that, because that's how I came into Kundalini information when it was only on the Yahoo group, but it was the same thing. And it's very precious, and it's unique.
Wait. Yeah. Is the volume, are you using headphones?
Yes.
Are you hearing feedback, Fashi? Are you hearing the sound come from her? Oh, I don't know if you heard that. He said on the chat room to turn down the volume of your iPad.
Of my iPad?
I guess. I don't know. He's not elaborating on that. He's not elaborating on that.
Okay, I've turned it down.
Okay. Okay. I'm not quite sure why that is.
It might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been on your iPad.
We have 2 minutes. Do we have time for a last question?
No. I don't think so, Chrism.
All right, my dear. I would like to thank you in your hot place. Give John a happy time and have a nice herb tea in the morning and have a nice, beautiful. How long do you stay there?
We're leaving with 2 more days. We leave on Saturday. So it's been a really lovely week for us. We haven't had this for a while.
Joy, how nice. You are so deserving of it, and so is John. I would like to thank Rosemary, Her Holiness, the High Mother Superior, the Mother Superior of Lake Superior, the life of Lake Superior. Say goodbye.
Goodbye. Blessings to us all. Thank you. A gift to be here.
Bye, Rosemary.
Rosemary doesn't like me to call her the Mother Superior. She never says that about herself. I always do, though.
I know that.
Except for Sound of Music, she's the only Mother Superior I've ever had any kind of contact with. Okay, all right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Josephine Smith, for listening. Thank you, Celestial Rubies and Julia and Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, guest 1778, guest 1813, and MJ Henderson and everybody who has already left. Thank you for those who are listening in the archives. And we will see you this time. We'll hear you this time next week. Same Kundalini time, same Kundalini channel. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mit Traumhaft ist am Bonn ja 65 Millionen. Heute im Euro-Jackpot. Unglaubliche rund 65 Millionen Euro. Jetzt in deiner Annahmestelle auf westlotto.de oder per App. Euro-Jackpot. Die Chance auf dein Traumleben.
Teilnahme ab 18. Gewinnchance rund 1 zu 95 Millionen. Glücksspiel kann süchtig machen. Informationen in Ihrer Westlotto-Annahmestelle.